Hi friends, my name is Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. So I just wanted to quickly talk about the gun laws, the protests that are taking place. The protests that are taking place in Pittsburg, Pennsylvania, I think it is, in the US. There's people sort of outraged, some gun owners outraged about the attempts to ban semi-automatic weapons and some forms of ammunition from the inner city realms, the inner city areas. I don't know why anybody, this often, in Australia, we find this, a lot of us find this head-scratchingly strange. The Liberal government, which is a right-wing, xenophobic, racist government, has been trying to reintroduce or undo the gun laws we have here, which is really, really unfortunate. And but anyway, about Pennsylvania, a lot of these gun owners who were speaking seem to think this is all about the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment, for a lot of these people, they don't seem to realize the Second Amendment was created to put down uprising slaves and to kill indigenous people and steal their land. That was these small militias that were formed to do that, and the Second Amendment was created for that purpose. And that's something that these people like to ignore, because often these people are white men who often have white supremacist leanings. They're usually racist and misogynist, and that's sort of something that they like to ignore when they talk about the Second Amendment. And I just want to say something too, which these people, they always go, you always hear this story, but you know, you should never let the government take away your guns, because one day you might have to rise up and fight the government, right? Well, I'd like to know when these people, these white men, usually white men, think that the time is, when is the right time to rise up against the government? Because the government's already introduced the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, and under this act, if I correctly remember this, they can arrest any US citizen and they can hold them in detention for as long as they like without counsel, and they can assassinate you. And it's all legal under the NDAA. Chris Hedges, the Pulitzer Prize recipient, author, challenged Obama about this act, and it was successful, and then it was overturned by another judge. It's a completely outrageous act, and yet, I mean, where are these so-called gun owners who say, but what if the government is, you know, we need to take arms against the government? Now, I'm all for nonviolence, and I don't believe I think that's a really stupid response to, you know, the time for any of that is well and truly gone. The government is basically that they have an almighty powerful police that has been militarized, and they would bring in the army at the drop of a hat, as you have seen. They're happy to bring in the army to do something in relation to the migrant caravan issue. They have no problem, you know, with bringing in the army. You think that a few plucky white supremacist men are going to be able to overthrow the government? I mean, seriously, do you really think so? It's just such a joke. This whole, I mean, there's this, I think I posted a video a while ago where somebody was talking about how, you know, there's this sort of addiction, almost like a gun love thing, you know, this addiction to guns in the US. It's the only country really that has this bizarre bordering on, it's just a fetishization. It's not bordering on a fetishization, it is, of guns. And yet all the things that the people who claim to be so protective of gun rights, who say you need them to, just in case the government, you need to overthrow the government. Well, if you didn't think that when they did pass the National Defense Authorization Act, where they can just arrest you and imprison you without trial indefinitely, on and on and on and on, like they do with people in Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay, and they can assassinate you legally. They've already assassinated a couple of US citizens overseas under this act, and they don't have to explain anything. So if you don't think, if you're a gun owner and you haven't had a reaction to that, then when do you think the time is to, you know, sort of rise up against the government? Seriously. So I just think it's just full of BS, a lot of people who go on about that. It's just some sort of addiction to guns, some sort of transference, like children that have dolls, you know. It makes you feel secure and manly and powerful, and all this toxic masculinity that goes with it. And this whole nonsense about guns don't kill people, people kill, you know, kill with guns. Well, I'm sorry, when somebody loses their block, if they have a gun to pick up, they can easily kill a bunch of people. If they can only have access to a knife, it's a little bit different, isn't it? So that's a nonsense. And I bet you a lot of these men who are going on and on about guns, because it's mainly white men, they probably never had a loved one be killed in a school massacre, which happens regularly. What does that say about the culture of the US? That children are killing other children because they're completely socially isolated. They feel like there's nothing left for them. That's part of it. And also the whole attitude about violence and the way their government goes overseas and basically bombs the bejesus out of people, stating that they're spreading freedom, in quotes, and democracy, in quotes, and killing people by the millions. 20 million people have been killed, I think, since World War II by the US empire. And these children are growing up in this really bizarre atmosphere, and they feel completely socially isolated, and nobody takes any notice of this because schools are so all over the place because its education isn't seen as important in the US. Teachers are underpaid, completely underpaid, because education is not valued. And these children just go by the wayside. I was watching something about the Columbine massacre not so long ago. One of the boys, Steve Klebold, he said to somebody that he was going to shoot, "You called me gay," you know. Well, firstly, that shouldn't be, you know, gay shouldn't even be seen as a slur, right? But unfortunately, homophobia is rampant. And, you know, but this is the sort of, you know, that boy was really angry with a lot of those people, a lot of those other children. A lot of them he was angry with, the ones he was most angry with, and the ones that he wanted to kill were these jocks. He actually asked them the jocks who usually wore white baseball caps on backwards or whatever, they asked them when they first arrived at the school, that all the jocks, the ones with the white baseball caps, could they stand up? And I think they were going to kill them. Of course, none of them stood up. And then they said, okay, well, we're just going to shoot everybody. But those jocks, they were the ones that were taunting those two boys. Now, I'm not saying that any violence is an appropriate reaction or a reaction to something like that. But if you have people that are unstable and they're socially isolated and they have nothing to live for, like those two boys and a lot of these other white boys, which are usually white males that are the mass shooters in these schools, right? They have a certain amount of entitlement. They think that women should do as they want. They're usually misogynist and have problems with women. But there's been a situation that's been created that creates this kind of mentality. And part of that, of course, is our toxic gender stereotypes, the toxic nature of the US system, the way they treat its citizens, the way the US treats its citizens is appalling. And the social inequality and the poverty and the mainstream media and the sort of nonsense that it puts out about men, reinforcing these toxic masculine stereotypes. Lack of education, lack of good education, and so forth. And they end up turning, their anger ends up turning outwards, and of course, if they have a semi-automatic weapon or whatever, away we go, and you just kill a whole bunch of people, and then you kill yourself. And that's what happens every day in the world to women, usually. In domestic situations, the male partner will, instead of just killing themselves because they're angry with the world, they kill themselves, but first they kill their partner and the children or the whole family or whatever. How does this arise? I've asked this question before. How does this sort of mentality arise where people think, where men think it's okay to not only to kill themselves but also take out a whole bunch of other people and end their lives? Where does that mentality come from and that attitude? Because as I say, you don't see women killing their partner and then killing their whole family. It's very rare that that ever happens. But it is a regular thing every single day in the world, men doing that. I'm getting off the track from this Pittsburg, these gun law things, but I just wanted to make the point that these arguments that are put up by these white males who are usually white supremacists, a lot of them, is they try and say that, you know, we need to defend the Constitution, the Second Amendment, but they never ever, they understand what that Second Amendment was created for, and that was to put down uprising slaves and to kill indigenous people and take their land. That was one of the major things for small white militias to do. So they ignore that. Secondly, they always go, but you need to be able to uprise against the government. Well, as I said, when is the appropriate time to do that? Because I thought maybe the NDAA, if you're really serious about what you're saying, maybe that would have been the time when they can just arrest you, throw you in prison without counsel indefinitely, or assassinate you. You don't think that that's the time to do it? I mean, seriously. So, not that I advocate violence, I would never advocate violence like that, but I'm just saying, you know, this is always the claim. You've got to be able to uprise against the government. And the third thing is, good luck trying to overwhelm the army with all the technology they have. Good luck. You won't last 5 minutes with that kind of firepower. So all these arguments about guns, it's really, why not just be honest and say, I love my gun. If I could sleep with my gun, I would. I love killing animals. I love killing them. I say it's for food, but really I just love killing them. And, you know, just be honest. You know, that would be really great. I just get so tired of all these sort of really sad arguments that these particular gun owners seem to have. It's just sad. Anyway, and what on earth does somebody need a firearm in the city? Like a firearm like that, a semi-automatic firearm in the city? Seriously, within the city limits, what on earth do you need that for? How many mass shootings have you ever heard of where somebody with a gun stops the shooter? I mean, really, except for one, I can't think, there's only one I can think of where it was in a church. I think there was a shooting of a bunch of black people in a church, and I think somebody did something, but that was after the fact. They'd already run off and they chased them down or something. So those people had already been killed. But how many times do people go, oh, I wish to, you know, if I was there, I would have stopped that gunman. No. It hasn't, I don't think it's happened yet. And there's one every other day now. It's a sickness. Anyway, when I saw these men open carrying these weapons, semi-automatic weapons, around town, I thought, what kind of country is this that thinks that this is normal? I mean, it would be absolutely unthinkable at this point anyway, unless the Liberal government has its way, unthinkable to have people roaming around with semi-automatic weapons hanging over their shoulder and guns in holsters. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's so sad. There's a terrible spiritual malaise in that society, that this is where they are, that that's what they seem to think is important, some of these people. And not only that, I bet you'd be a small few of those men, those white men that go on about the importance of guns and protecting themselves. I bet you they're not anti-war, and I bet you they're not anti-imperialism. I'm sure that's just hunky-dory with them. I bet you that's totally fine. Killing people overseas, no problem. For resources and hegemony, no problem. Imperialism, it's fine. Anyway, that's all I really wanted to say. So thanks so much for watching. My name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. Till next time. Bye for now.